I want to welcome all of you to our luncheon plenary today. Our topic today is U.S.-Japan Business and Innovation. My name is Fred Katayama. I'm an anchor at Reuters News, part of Thomson Reuters. I'm also on the board of directors at the U.S.-Japan Council. I'm based in New York, proud to have lived and raised in California as a sansei, and especially proud and privileged to have spent a glorious year living in this wonderful gem of a city called Seattle, Washington. I love that sense of energy, entrepreneurialism, innovation that I felt when I lived here. I felt it when I came back here. As Council General Ota remarked yesterday, there are entrepreneurial companies such as Amazon, Starbucks, Microsoft that were founded here in an economy that is based on or anchored by Boeing, one of our sponsors today. And another thing that endeared me to Seattle was the very active Japanese-American population that helped put this U.S.-Japan Council conference together. They reminded me a lot of the Japanese Americans I grew up with in Los Angeles. Going to a bowling alley, Imperial Lanes, could be like Hollywood Bowl in Los Angeles. Hearing Nisei with American names like Shig, Tak, and Hiro. And after they leave the lanes, they put on their members-only jackets, just like my dad and his cohorts who thought they were members of an exclusive club. And going to a family dinner, and afterwards, the leftovers, and the mama comes out and says, with her whole stack of styrofoam plates, just like in Los Angeles. Except, perhaps, they tend to wear a lot of Gore-Tex jackets here, and everyone seems to love to go mushroom hunting. Matsutake mushrooms, not the magic type. We talked about innovation. But before we get to that, we want to say farewell and remember someone who was a part of our community, a real good friend to the U.S.-Japan Council. I'm referring to the late Ambassador Shinichi Nishimiya. He was formerly Consul General and Ambassador in New York. He opened his doors to the USJC and the Japanese-American community, so popular that when he was asked to go back to Japan, one person came up to me and said, "Do you think we can launch a petition drive so he will not go back to Japan?" And I said that would be a disservice to him because he's about to become Deputy Foreign Minister, which he did, and he was just recently appointed to become Ambassador to China when unfortunately he collapsed on a city sidewalk and passed away 1 week later. He was innovative. He launched a samurai parade at Central Park in New York as part of the Japan Day festivities, poses Mr. Met at Citi Field at a U.S.-Japan Council event, had an excellent command of English, and really embraced our community. If you can all join me in a moment of silence to remember the legacy of Ambassador Shinichi Nishimiya. Thank you. Continuing on with our theme today, there were two influential, before we get to our keynote speaker, there are two influential studies that came out this year. One was the Nye-Armitage Report. It's written by Joseph Nye, the former dean of the JFK School of Government at Harvard, and Richard Armitage, a former Deputy Secretary of State. Now, I'm going to not give you the whole document, but just give the highlights as it pertains to our theme of business, U.S.-Japan, and innovation. And they said that in light of Japan's current state, after 3/11, that the U.S. and Japan should become allies in natural resources, that the U.S. should export LNG to Japan, ensure a stable supply, and that both sides should work together to promote R&D to produce methane hydrates. And they recommended that Japan join an FTA, free trade agreement, of the Americas. That's the U.S., Canada, and Mexico, and that way secure for Japan food supply and energy. But it came with a warning, a foreboding at the top of the study, and it said that Japan must decide between complacency of drifting into what it called second-tier status or take the realm of leadership and exercise leadership, because the premise of U.S.-Japan relations, as evidenced by them, that alliance that undergirds security in East Asia, is a Japan as a first-tier status. They end on a note of optimism, however. They say that Japan is fully capable of remaining Tier 1. It's a question of her disposition. Number two, you may recall, those of us who were with us last year, that at this luncheon, it was sort of on a theme of McKinsey had come out with a study called Revitalizing or Reimagining Japan, looking at the whole country. Well, this year, its rival PricewaterhouseCoopers came out with a narrower study focusing on corporate Japan. Why am I going to talk about that? Our keynote speaker, Niinami-san, is quoted in that piece. He was one of the many Japanese CEOs interviewed. And this is about how to revitalize corporate Japan. And what was interesting about it was that, having read both of them, there's broad consensus on what Japan needs to do. McKinsey's talked to a lot of Westerners as well. Pricewaterhouse tended to focus on the Japanese, and there seems to be a lot of agreement. And they're fivefold. One, that Japan be bold and take risk. Two, that it open up and collaborate. That is, team up with international researchers. They do to a much lesser degree than Americans and Europeans do. Number three, embrace change. Number four, human resources. We've heard them time and time again, even at our U.S.-Japan Council seminars and workshops. That is, embrace women, hire more foreigners, open up the country to immigration. And five, our theme today is entrepreneurship, and push innovation. And it says, on an optimistic note, that this is an opportunity for Japan, that Japan can become a model. It can teach the world how to transform a mature economy that has an aging population, a low birth rate, into a thriving one. It's something that the U.S., in many ways, as well as South Korea has a low birth rate, for example. Here in the U.S., of course, we have immigration. It also says, note that this study was done 1 year after 3/11, so Pricewaterhouse and the Japanese executives interviewed were able to see how Japan has transformed over a year, or dealt with the topic of having to change, or that word that the Japanese often like to use, ikinoko, to survive. And the report says that the Japanese executives recognize what the issues are. After all, there is broad consensus on what needs to be done. But they, not just talking the talk, and in my interpretation, not walking the walk, but run. That they've got to change fast, because the world is changing fast. And yet, there is a sense of foreboding, because it says, and maybe it's because perhaps Tokyo is isolated or distant from Tohoku in a way. They quote Itochu's CEO, Eizo Kobayashi, and Kobayashi-san says that he feels a sense of crisis. And I'm paraphrasing, that he senses it precisely because he senses that the Japanese do not share a sense of crisis, that sense of crisis that is needed to spur change and to act fast. Well, one person who doesn't need to hear that message because he's always on the run, as if he's almost running scared, even though he need not be, is our keynote speaker, Takeshi Niinami. He's the president and CEO of Lawson. That's one of Japan's largest convenience store chains. If you've ever been to Japan, convenience stores are different from the 7-Elevens that you see here. They offer a lot more products, a lot more services. You can ship your package from a Lawson, and also buy concert tickets there, among other things. Do banking, but I'll let him tell more about that. I'll talk about him in a second. He is an entrepreneur. He started at one of the most bluest of Japanese companies, Mitsubishi Corporation, Mitsubishi Shoji. And there, he founded a medical food service called Sodex Japan, a joint venture, and eventually became its CEO. He didn't stop there. He then started the Lawson Project Management Department and later became its CEO at the ripe age in Japan of 43 in 2002. Since that period, since 2002, its market cap has more than tripled to $8 billion. Sales have risen more than 50% to $23 billion. Lawson now has 10,000 stores in Japan, 500 in China, 100 in Indonesia, and 2 in Senator Inoue,'s great state of Hawaii. He's extremely active in the business community. He is vice chair of Keizai Doyukai. It's one of Japan's largest and most powerful business organizations, also known as the Japan Association of Corporate Executives. There he chairs the Agricultural Reform Committee, as well as sits as the chair of the U.S.-Japan Committee. He was also recognized by Keidanren, that's the Japan Business Federation, and got its Outstanding Manager Award for Innovative Management, and you'll understand why when you hear him talk tonight. As I said earlier, he was cited in that PricewaterhouseCoopers study, many of which may have seen those copies that were distributed earlier today. By the way, PwC is also one of our sponsors for USJC's conference. And in it, he says that Japan needs bold reforms and regulation revisions in order to create jobs to activate a younger generation. He also knows our country, the U.S. He spent his junior year at Stanford University, earned an MBA at the Harvard Business School. Ladies and gentlemen, Takeshi Niinami.
Konnichiwa. Konnichiwa. Thank you, Fred, for the great introduction. Your Excellency and the distinguished guests, it is a great pleasure and honor to be here. I want to take this opportunity to express my sincere appreciation to the great support and your friendship extended to Japan by American friends, especially Tomodachi initiatives. Thank you so much. Also, I congratulate on very successful turnout of the third U.S.-Japan Council annual meeting here. Today, I'd like to speak about my experience, and I would like to share with you of running Lawson since I became its CEO 10 years ago. What I have done to turn around the company that was headed toward, as a matter of fact, bankruptcy. Mitsubishi didn't know, as a matter of fact. And how I transformed its very domestic business nature with a conservative Japanese culture to one of the most innovative companies with a global perspective. I'm not sure. Well, as a matter of fact, I saw a lot of people talking about Lawson. That's great. And I don't know how many of you are familiar with Lawson, but the convenience stores in Japan, as Fred mentioned earlier, are very different from the ones in the States. So I'd like to show you what's Lawson now. Can you take a look at it?
Hello, my name is Akiko. I work at Lawson, a Japanese convenience store. I'd like to tell you all about it. Lawson is open 24 hours a day, every day of the year. We have stores in more than 10,000 locations throughout Japan, so you can find us anywhere. Although our stores are much smaller than supermarkets, you'll be pleasantly surprised by our wide selection of products and services. Let me show you around the inside of one of our stores. We stock approximately 3,000 different products in this small space. There are too many food products to count. You can find meals like rice balls, boxed lunches, and sandwiches, and snacks such as cake, chocolate, potato chips, and candy. We also have simmering oden, steamed buns, and even fried chicken. Other products include drinks, everyday items, cosmetics, stationery supplies, and magazines. Lawson takes pride in its food products in particular. We develop, procure ingredients for, process, and deliver many of our own products. An increasing number of Lawson stores have also recently begun selling fresh vegetables. In addition to products, Lawson also offers a wide variety of services. Our in-store ATMs accept most bank cards, and you can use our copy machines to send faxes and print out photos from your digital camera. You can also pay your utility and telephone bills, pay your taxes, and send mail and packages by normal post or express courier. And there's more. You can use Lawson's Lopi system to reserve concert tickets, purchase amusement park tickets, video games, DVDs, and other products. We've also recently started to provide in-store Wi-Fi hotspots. Lawson provides these services 24 hours a day, anytime, anywhere. Do you want to learn more about Lawson? Then visit our website, Lawson Walk. It's packed with lots of great content. Check it out online.
So this is Lawson. Thank you so much. I love my staff to have created this one. As you have seen, we are one of the most advanced small retail formats in the world. However, things were so different when I came to Lawson 10 years ago. In general, Japanese companies are good at taking care of details and have strengths in operations. On the other hand, they are weak in their ability to form strategies with strong leadership. Lawson did not have either operational excellence or strategic management. So I revamped Lawson by utilizing the strength of Japanese companies as well as lessons learned from my US education. Before joining Lawson, I worked at Mitsubishi Corporation for 20 years, mainly commodity trading and investment to food services industry. While at Mitsubishi, I came to the US to earn my MBA at Harvard. Then I returned to Mitsubishi, Japan. Also initiated entrepreneurial investment. And it's funded, I founded the Sodex Corporation, founded by Mitsubishi Corporation, and the French company, Sodexo. During my 7 years as its CEO, I merged this company with another medical food service company and listed onto JASDAQ Stock Exchange. Lawson went public in 2000 when Mitsubishi became one of its major shareholders. During the 2 years following the IPO, Lawson had a very difficult time, and the company's operating profit declined rapidly. Its share price fell from its initial price of 6,000 yen to 2,500 yen. That was amazing. The management at the time gave up on fixing problems at the company and showed their intention to resign. So, as a major shareholder, Mitsubishi Corp recommended Lawson's board to appoint me as its CEO in 2002. I was only 43 years old at the time, and was one of the youngest CEOs of largely listed companies in Japan. I'm already 53 though. Time flies. Soon after arriving at Lawson, I was so surprised to see the situation was much worse than I'd expected. I just got a lot of headache. But I was under heavy pressure to sustain the share price because it rose from 2,500 to 4,000 yen, and following an announcement that I would become its CEO. This meant that I had to implement a short-term turnaround plan to satisfy the market while implementing long-term plans to create sustainable corporate value. In order to revamp the company with a focus on long-term value creation while the short-term results, I had to challenge many of the traditional norms of Japanese companies and business practices. These included abolishing full-time employment, and seniority system. That's scary for the Japanese community. Implementing total meritocracy, practicing capital discipline, cutting off the relationships based on self-serving interests of the previous management, and differentiating ourselves from our competitors through innovation. These were huge challenges for someone like me without the industry knowledge and being one of the youngest management in Japan. I knew that the most important thing for a company was to share strong and positive values amongst all people throughout the organization. However, at Lawson, overly strong headquarter-centric management led to low motivation of rank and file. In response to whatever I said, they always responded just yes to me. In the beginning, I thought they fully understood my direction. I was so happy. But soon I noticed that they just say yes to me and hoped that I would forget what I directed them. So, in my early days, I spent much of time communicating with our people and the franchisees. During my first 3 years, I spent 2/3 of my time interacting with our people and the franchisees to gain the trust. This gave me lots of insight on how to fix problems. I discovered that our people knew, as a matter of fact, how to better solve problems using their local knowledge than the standardized operational know-how directed from headquarters. So I delegated decision-making authority to general managers of our regional headquarters on day-to-day management. By empowering people, I could raise their motivation and increase their productivity. This was completely different from the usual practice of the Japanese retail industry. At the same time, I had to implement the short-term solutions. There is substantial restructuring to gain trust of the market. It was never easy to let people go, but it was inevitable that I had to reduce headcount of our full-time employees, though we are not bleeding. During my first year, I reduced the number of employees by 20%. I also implemented total meritocracy in our human resources management system and completely abolished the seniority system and lifetime employment by setting retirement age of managers at 55 years. These measures were not normal for Japanese firms. I also had to close down the non-performing stores. By the end of my second year, I closed down about 1,500 stores of the total 7,200 stores across Japan. It was against the industry norm to reduce the number of stores when all our competitors were aggressively increasing stores to capture market share without considering the cost of capital. This was typical of Japanese companies, but I place a greater importance on capital discipline instead of playing the same game as our competitors. Furthermore, I had to streamline our supply chain throughout Japan, and I reduced the number of factories and the logistics centers by 30%. As a result, Lawson enjoyed improvements in its economies of scale and the quality of its merchandise, which also led to higher profitability. This implementation was very difficult in Japan. Many of the executives at Lawson felt an obligation to maintain business with existing suppliers because of sticky relations which had been developed over a long time by the previous management. Many of those suppliers were taking advantage of their vested rights in doing business with us. To create a long-term corporate value, I initiated various growth strategies by differentiating Lawson from our competitors. While standardization was the industry norm, I implemented a multi-format store strategy. Conventionally, Japanese convenience stores had served mainly young males. But to respond to the aging population and the increasing in number of working women, we introduced new formats to capture the needs of these new customer segments, as they prefer Lawson stores located within a walking distance rather than going to a distant supermarket. As early as 5 years ago, we started to convert some of our stores to offer perishables in small quantities and other ingredients for cooking. These new format stores now account for 50% of our 10,000 stores. We also started Natural Lawson, which offers healthy daily items and organic products targeting health and beauty-conscious customers. Also, we opened the Pharmacy Lawson by facilitating our Natural Lawson stores with a dispensing pharmacy to serve the aging population by providing them healthy food items that are low in sodium, controlled calories, and good tasting. I'm sure you will like it. Please visit our stores in Japan. You will be surprised to taste such a tasteful foods. I hope they are really delicious. Yeah, they are. As a result, we are now very well received by people over 60 years old and women. We think convenience can be provided not only in real stores, but also at home. Being able to buy prepared foods for immediate consumption at the neighborhood stores is one form of convenience. But being able to get items delivered directly to homes by simply making several clicks on a PC, tablet, or smartphone is another form of convenience. We see e-commerce as an essential vehicle to increasing our share of customers' wallets. What is important and make us different than other online shops like Amazon is that we have real stores with loyal customers. By fully utilizing our deep customer knowledge, deep customer knowledge from our retail store operations, our online stores will have a competitive advantage over other e-commerce players without real stores. We seek to become the world's first WTO enterprise in retail industry, online to offline and offline to online. Japanese convenience stores evolved from mom-and-pop franchisees. Each franchisee usually operates one store. However, to create a more challenging and reward environment for our franchisees, I introduced the management owner franchisees. This system is called the management owner system. That happened 3 years ago. The management owners are local franchisees with more than 10 stores. They are just like entrepreneurial ventures. Under this system, Lawson headquarters plays the role of venture capitalist, providing various support to those entrepreneurs with the desire to expand their business with innovative service and new business models. Management owners are the most knowledgeable about store operations, customers, and the local communities, and they possess great insight about potential business opportunities. One of the most successful management owner is only 28 years old, and he runs 31 stores with annual sale of about $70 million. And he's preparing now to list his company on the Nasdaq Stock Exchange. As we often hear, the innovation occurs at the boundary. Diversity is indeed one of the most important elements for innovation. As early as 6 years ago, we started to actively recruit women as well as foreign nationals at the headquarters of Tokyo. For the past several years, half of new hires have been women, and nearly one-third are non-Japanese. Also, we were one of the very first Japanese companies to offer 3-year child care leave and to start hiring large number of foreign nationals at the headquarters of Tokyo. Based on our successes, many other large companies have followed in our footsteps. As a result, we have achieved 10 consecutive years of operating profit growth with compound annual growth rate of over 7%. Our return on equity is over 15%. These numbers are far higher than the Japanese average. During my early days at Lawson, to be frank with you, I wished I could start from scratch instead of reconstructing the company. I encountered a lot of cultural obstacles, but I have always challenged the norms in Japanese business by questioning why in pursuit of excellence, and always try to be at the forefront of innovation. I always tell my people to think outside the box and doubt the conventional practices by asking why. I call it why storming. I strongly believe that we can change Japan for the better by why storming. It's easy to say, but hard to do because Japanese society places a greater emphasis on conflict avoidance. And the aging of society makes it even more difficult to create changes. But we need to challenge the conservatism of Japan in order to foster innovation to revitalize the country. Also, young CEOs should demonstrate successful results by challenging the norms by why storming. They have to acknowledge that they are important role models for society. In the past year, I've had the pleasure of working with people in Silicon Valley. What I have learned is that innovation occurs by questioning the norms and making things a little different or doing things a little differently. People in Silicon Valley are forward-looking without sticking to the status quo and always thinking about how something different may happen tomorrow. On the other hand, Japanese companies and people are very good at taking care of details, as I mentioned earlier. Once we find something creative and innovative, we are very good at implementing these ideas into practice or products with such precision. Let me give you examples that are easy to understand. McDonald's, Kentucky Fried Chicken, and Starbucks. They are invented by Americans. But if you compare them in the US with Japan, I think you will find the ones in Japan are much better. In terms of the quality of the products, cleanliness of the stores, efficiency of the store operations, and the customer services. Oops. So sorry to say this, since Starbucks comes from Seattle. But it's true. Come visit Starbucks in Japan. They are really good. When you do, please don't forget to drop by Lawson too. Well, also I am very happy to inform you that we opened 2 stores in Hawaii this summer. Thank you. Thank you very much, Irene and Senator Inoue. I got lots of support from people in Hawaii. And this is our gateway to the U.S. mainland. This means that U.S.-born convenience store concept was brought to Japan, has been refined over time, and is now coming back to the U.S. What I'm trying to say is that though collaboration between Japan and the U.S. to leverage the respective strengths and the competitiveness of each country, we can create very profound innovation, especially in the areas such as healthcare, life and science, agriculture, and energy. As a person who was fortunate to receive education in both Japan and the U.S., I strongly feel that there is so much benefit not only for the U.S. and Japan, but for the entire world by enhancing further mutual relations in business, government, academia, and society as a whole. Let's strengthen this alliance of the two countries that we have inherited from the prior generations, and together we can create prosperity for the world, for the next generation and beyond. Thank you very much.